Oh, I suppose I should.
Yeah,
Yeah,
happy
I was
start.
also just making sure that all my notifications are off. It is actually my birthday today, so many people have been trying to
Oh,
contact me. And
oh my goodness. Well, happy birthday for today. My birthday's tomorrow. So
oh, yay, that's
there we
fun.
go.
And my mom's is in
Um,
2 days, so I think we all have celebrations going on. This is
Wow.
yeah.
great.
And
Big birthday
thanks very
month.
much for doing this on your birthday then. That's so
Oh, of
cool.
course I should. It's one of my favorite things.
Awesome. So everyone, this is Dustin Stout, creator of Magi and a bunch of other things too. If you've all looked at Magi yet, you know that there's a whole bunch of models in there that we can play with. And Dustin has very kindly agreed to come here and, help clarify some of that and demystify it. So, Dustin, over to you.
Yeah,
What
so
should I even be asking?
well, I mean, I guess I'll just kind of take the lead here because what we wanted to talk about today was something that I think is important in everybody's journey in learning how to work effectively with AI. And I want to just let everybody know that no matter where you're at on the AI journey, whether you have been using it from day one and feel like you're a pro, or you feel like you really haven't dove in like you should yet, and you're still kind of anxious or uncertain about how to go about it, let me just tell you, we're all in this together. We're all kind of learning as we go, and now some of us maybe have more time to spend learning it and playing with AI, and so we've got just a little bit more experience under our belts. But today's topic, what they brought me into to teach about, and I want to thank you, Maya and Karen. I really do love teaching, and I think this one topic is essential for really anyone to understand and how to really get the most out of AI. And there's several layers to it. So I might go kind of fast at times, and if I do, just slow me down. Um, but we're going to leave plenty of time for Q&A. So I really want you guys to, as I'm, explaining some of these concepts, I really want you to take the time and think, how does this apply to my everyday or every week use of AI? And go ahead and just write down your questions, and I'll tackle as many of them as I can at the end. So first and foremost, raise your hand or put an emoji in the chat. How many of you have actually worked with AI? You've used an AI app such as ChatGPT or some other form of chatbot where you have sort of a conversation with an AI model. How many of you in the room have actually done that before? Cool. Poe. I've used Poe. You'll like Magi way better than Poe. I promise you that. Magi does count. Yes, it does. ChatGPT. Okay, we've got a bunch of yeses in there. Fantastic. Now, how many of you in the room, are there any of you in the room? Just go ahead and throw an emoji in the chat here. How many of you have not used AI like at all? Just to kind of get a frame of where we're starting out here. Has anyone not used it before? Not used any form of chatbot? It's looking like maybe no. Okay, good. So we've all got sort of a baseline of what it means to interact with a AI chatbot. And I'm going to use the word chatbot throughout today. It's sort of just the default way to categorize a type of AI because there are many types of AI. There are many types of ways of interacting with AI. But the type of AI we're talking about today is the kind that the technical term for it is large language model. A large language model specifically in which you have a conversational style interaction with. So you send it a message, the AI responds, and then you can respond back to that message, and the AI can respond and keep in the continuity of that conversation. So that's what we're talking about in the context of today's conversation. Now, most people understand this idea that if you ask the AI question, it will give you an answer. Now, there are many different approaches to doing this, but I think the best approach is to first and foremost understand one thing. The AI is trained on billions of things. It knows a lot about it a lot, but it does not know specifically about you or your needs. Every time you start a conversation inside of ChatGPT or Poe or Magi, it doesn't automatically know the context of your reality. Some of these apps don't allow you to sort of input your name or even your information. And so really you're starting with a blank slate. And so we have to first and foremost understand any assumptions that we might make when we're asking the AI a question. So for example, a lot of people, they want to go and have the AI write a social media post for them, right? So if I were to go to a brand new AI or create a brand new ChatGPT account, and I say, write me a social media post about dog food, it could do that. It will proceed to do that, but it will do it without any context of who I am personally, who my target audience is, who or what entity or business I represent. So it's basically going completely blind about all the context that actually matters. And so what I'm going to be teaching you about today is how to layer in context that will get you better output. And the best way to really think about this is if you were to go and hire a brand new intern off the streets, fresh out of college, they got their master's degree in general studies. They know a lot about a lot. But they don't know anything about your business. And so what you would do typically in that case, for those of you who haven't hired anyone before, you would typically have an onboarding process. You would have some sort of an employee manual that would tell them, this is our business, this is what we do, this is our mission, our vision, our values, this is the products or the services that we sell. These are our typical types of customers. Here are our brand guidelines. Here are our rules of operation. You would walk them through all of the things that are necessary for them to effectively complete their job, right? But many of us don't think to do that when we employ a brand new AI model into our work and business. And that's why you'll hear a lot of people say things like, I tried ChatGPT and the stuff it came up with was so generic and it sounded like AI wrote it. Well, of course it did, because AI did write it, number one. And number two, you probably didn't give it enough context to customize its message to your exact precise needs. And there are many ways to do this. Now, the first way to do this, to give the AI the context that it needs, is simply through giving it a prompt. Most people are familiar with that methodology. Just type it in and send it off to ChatGPT. And in the early days of ChatGPT, that's exactly what people were doing. They were saying, okay, we're going to start with just saying, hey, ChatGPT, here's some information about me, my business, and my target audience. And then they would start their conversation with that and then proceed to give the AI their actual query or their actual request. So they're preloading it with the vital information it needs to effectively do its job. And it worked really well for the most part. You would get significantly better content as output. You would get better replies from the AI, but it would still kind of feel a little generic at times. And the problem with that is every time you start a new conversation with AI, you're starting again from a blank slate, because at that time there was no such thing as memory. The ChatGPT and the other apps couldn't remember all your other conversations, because what you have to understand about this AI is that every thread, every chat thread that you have is completely isolated. The AI isn't being trained, it's not being stored somewhere in most cases, unless you activate a feature that does that. But by default, it's not going to remember all the other conversations you had with it. Every new conversation is a blank slate. So you would have to prompt the AI every time you start a new conversation with all this same information. And that became a little bit tedious. Now, there were some people who thought, well, maybe if I just keep in that same chat thread, I'll be okay, because I won't have to keep reminding it of all this crucial business information, right? Well, it turns out that's actually not a very good idea. And the reason it's not a very good idea is because AI has a very limited memory. So you might notice if you have very long conversations with ChatGPT, it tends to forget things. You will have it answer a question for you or produce something and it's a little bit off and you're like, wait, didn't we talk about this up here before? And it'll go, nope, sorry, I don't have any recollection of that. Or it might lie to you and say, oh yeah, I remember that. Let me change this and that. AI has a very limited memory. In technical terms, this is called a context limit. The context limit, the best way to think about it is, most of us have used thumb drives, right? Or flash drives to store information or data, or, back in the day it was like for storing photos. When that flash drive gets full, you have to remove images or files in order to add new files, right? And so that's essentially what the AI has to do when it reaches its context limit. When there's so many messages in a conversation and that is at the maximum amount of its context limit, it has to start removing stuff from the top, if we're going from the bottom up. So this idea of using one single chat thread so that you don't have to constantly remind the AI of something is ineffective at a certain point. At some point, it becomes, it's going to start forgetting things. On top of that, it's really not a great practice because AI does best in single tasks, and the longer a conversation goes on, the more the previous parts of the conversation influence the next message. So, for example, let's say you're doing a marketing task, right? You start with having it write some marketing copy for your business. And then later in the chat thread after that, you have some other tasks that you want to help you write, and maybe an email to a customer, and then maybe a support related query. You want it to help you craft a support message to a customer. Well, all of that prior context, all those previous messages that have to do with marketing and other items is going to influence the output of that customer support query. So it might be colored with a little bit of that marketing side that happened earlier in the conversation, might be colored by some of the other stuff. So you really don't want to have conversations exceed the necessary limit of accomplishing a given task. Once you have a brand new task, you definitely want to start a new conversation. But then the problem is, how do I keep, how do I not have to remind it of all this crucial business information? Well, there's several ways. The first way is with custom context. Now, this is a concept that ChatGPT enabled, and I guess I can share my screen here just to give you guys an example for those who may not have seen it before. Let me pull it up really quickly. And I just want to restate, I will be demonstrating some of this in Magai and some of it in ChatGPT, but the principles I'm talking about here are applicable to any chatbot. And that's something I really try to do with all of my presentations. Is it's not just about things you can do in Magai, but I want to give you tangible, actionable skills and knowledge that will transfer no matter what AI app you're using.
And Dustin, just to clarify, it also doesn't matter whether they have a paid AI tool or a free one, right? The logic is still the same.
Yeah, most of these principles are applicable no matter whether you're a ChatGPT regular, you're a Pro user, you're a Claude user, free, paid. Most of these principles, albeit some of them may be locked behind a paywall. And I'm having a hard time finding my screen here in Zoom. Give me just 1 second. Share. There we go. ChatGPT. So here I am in ChatGPT. And if you'll notice, if I go up, oh, sorry, this interface is in my way. If I go up to my profile here on the right, top right, and I choose to customize ChatGPT, I have the ability to basically give ChatGPT additional information about me that I want the AI to know every single time I start a conversation with it. And so they give you some easy to use fields here. Now my mom's calling me. She wants to wish me a happy birthday. So you've got some easy fields here. What should ChatGPT call you? Okay, fine. What do you do? A little bit about you. What traits should ChatGPT have? This is sort of how you inform it to how you want it to write and behave. And then anything else ChatGPT should know about you. And so, this is just some information about me. And we've got some advanced fields here where you can choose some of the capabilities that ChatGPT has by default. This is one layer of customization you can give to the AI. And essentially, this is going to be inserted at the beginning automatically behind the scenes of every conversation that you have with ChatGPT. Now, in Magi, we have something similar. We call it custom context. If I can bring that up, see, is it gonna see, where is Zoom? I lost the screen.
Zoom has a way of disappearing.
All right,
Maybe
are
if
you
I
able to
keep
see Magi here, my dashboard?
Yes.
Are you guys
Yep,
able to see my dashboard here in Magi?
we can see your
Yeah.
dashboard, yes.
Yeah.
Okay,
dashboard.
great. So if you were to go to your account page here, or account settings page in Magi, we have something called additional or custom context here. It says additional text you want added to the prompt. And so this, again, just like the ChatGPT settings, are going to be inserted in every single conversation you have before the chat begins. And so the benefits of something like a custom context like this is that, number one, it's the first thing that happens every time a conversation has. The AI is informed of this. Number two, you don't have to worry about adding it every single time. And number three, it never leaves the AI's memory. And the reason for that is because this custom context is added at the system level. Now, you wouldn't be aware of this because it's not something, it's more of a technical spec of the AI, but literally every AI model that you interact with, and I'm just going to come back to me here for a second. Every AI model that you interact with and use has what's called a system message. And some companies call it differently. They might call it a developer message or a system prompt. But essentially, this is a set of instructions that the AI is given before, at the beginning of the conversation, that informs how it behaves. And so think of it like a pair of glasses. So the AI has to view every interaction, every query, every message through those glasses that is the system prompt. It informs it how it should reply, what tone of voice, and you know where it should focus its attention. And this is where we get at the next level of prompt adherence, or the next level of sophistication in our prompting. It's, instead of just prompting it as you are this role or you have this knowledge, when you put it at the system level, again, it's never going to be forgotten, but also the AI sees it as its highest priority. So there are many prompting techniques out there where they will say, if you tell the AI to be an expert copywriter, it's going to give you much better copy. Or if you tell the AI to talk like a pirate, it's going to talk like a pirate. And the reason for this is, again, AI is trained on millions and millions and billions of parameters of information. And so when you ask it a query, it's searching its generalized knowledge base of what it's been trained on and formulating language based on all of that training. But when you instead focus the AI on a specific category, or you focus it on a specific expertise, what you're effectively doing is filtering out the stuff that doesn't relate to that. So the AI is able to narrow its focus and all of its processing power on a more effective path for your given task. And so, you know, the best thing you could possibly do is understand, first and foremost, what kind of an expert do I need for this given task that I want of the AI? And then inform it, this is who I want you to be. So if you are doing customer support, you might start with something like, you are my customer support agent. You specialize in helping us answer questions in a friendly and helpful way, right? So you're guiding it, you're instructing it just the same way, going back to that intern analogy, you're instructing that intern exactly what their role is in your company. And so first, we want to make sure it knows our business information, right? Then we want it to play a given role for a given task, right? And so again, we could do that in the form of a prompt, We could prompt it right in there. We could use that custom context to give it our business information so that our prompt can just contain, okay, and now you are our customer service agent. But how do we make sure that it won't forget its role if that conversation gets too deep? And also, how do we make sure that that role becomes its highest priority? Because remember, at the system level, that's the highest priority. Those are the glasses it sees everything through. And if you yourself aren't crafting this system message, all of these apps, Claude, Gemini, ChatGPT, they all have a default system message. And essentially, it's the most generic one possible. They will add your custom context to it, but it will also have a layer of instructions on how that AI should behave. And in most cases, it's generic, simply you are a helpful assistant. And sometimes it might get a little more elaborate and say, you help the user with X, Y, Z, you interpret their prompt, blah, 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 blah. But essentially, you're starting out with the most generic version of that AI model. And so how do we have it do an effective job as a customer support agent if its highest priority is to be a generalist assistant, right? So there's a breakdown in our objectives and the objectives that the AI sees as its highest priority. This is where something like GPTs come in. Now, it took OpenAI several months, maybe I think a little over a year, to introduce the concept of GPTs. But effectively, a GPT is just giving you the ability to customize that system message or that system prompt to whatever your given task is. And I don't mean to brag, but Magi had these from day one. Back in March 31st of 2023, I understood this concept and I built what we call personas into Magi from day one. Now, a persona is exactly that same thing. A persona gives you the ability to tell the AI, this is the role that you're playing, this is who you are going to do, and these are the tasks that you're helping them with. Thereby replacing these persona instructions, they end up replacing that system prompt, that generic default system prompt, with whatever it is you want that instruction to be. So partner that with the layered in custom context of your business or whatever it is you want the AI to know every single time. Then layer in the persona or the GPT with custom system instructions that tell it exactly who you want it to behave as, the exact role that you want it to play. The end result is you get to start a conversation with an AI with a persona or GPT activated that will give you exponentially better results. And the reason is because you're no longer dealing with a contextless entity AI that has been trained on a bunch of generic things, is going to give you generic answers. It's going to give you laser specific results, laser specific answers that are, in most cases, if you've done a good job at articulating that system prompt, going to be undetectable as AI written content. And I've proven this again and again and again with all of the personas. And so I'll kind of show you how this works in both GPT and in Magi.
I think I've actually had those AI detectors tell me that my carefully crafted, personally written content was an AI. I was quite
Yes,
amazed.
they will tell you that. And I'll be the first to tell you that anything that is AI content detection, all this AI content detector apps and software out there, they're complete snake oil. They do not work. You can put any piece of writing in there, it's going to give you, most likely tell you that it's written by AI. It is completely false software. So in ChatGPT, some of you may or may not know this, but you can create what's called GPTs. And you can explore a library of GPTs made by other people, or you can create your own. You can do this manually or through a chat interface. You can just sort of tell the AI what kind of a role that you want to create a GPT around, and it will help you. Or you can simply give it a name, a quick description, and then you would write your AI instructions to it here. And the way that you write these instructions is essentially the same way you would explain to a human being what their role is in your organization. And some things that you want to keep in mind here, you want to speak directly to the AI as if it's a person. because that's how these large language models are trained. They're trained to understand natural human language. So you speak to it just like it's a person and tell it who it is, what it does, and how it helps the user. Okay, I'm going to walk through an example of this inside of Magai because the workflow is essentially the same. So in Magai, we have the ability to create custom personas. And you can see I've got quite a few that I've created myself here. The way that you do this is just create a persona, click the button in the top right corner. Again, give it a name. You can give it an image if you want, and then you can write your custom instructions. So let me pull up one of my examples here. Find a simple one to start, and then we'll get a little bit more advanced. Okay, personal trainer. Let's look at our personal trainer persona. So here in the instructions, I've written, you are an enthusiastic personal trainer. The user will provide you with all the information needed about an individual looking to become fitter, stronger, and healthier through physical training, and your role is to devise the best plan for that person depending on their current fitness levels, goals, and lifestyle habits. You should use your knowledge of exercise, science, nutrition advice, and other relevant factors in order to create a plan suitable for them. So here are our essential components at play. We tell it who it is, what it does. Well, I guess I've reversed the order a little bit here. We're telling it what the user will provide it, and then we'll tell it how it responds to that information. Okay, let me find another example that's there was one that I wanted to bring up. Okay, let's try this one. Okay, here's a little bit more complex one. Again, I'm going to start by saying exactly who the AI is supposed to be, the role it's supposed to be playing. So it says, you are a highly experienced business advisor. You provide guidance and support to businesses in a variety of areas. Some of the key responsibilities of your business advisor, include, and then I've labeled out just a bunch of things that I think a business advisor should do. And then at the end here, I say you will act as a consultant and a sounding board to help the user achieve their goals and improve performance across key areas of their business by asking questions and offering strategic solutions. And we'll do one more quick example here, and it's going to be a little bit more complex. I want to emphasize these things don't have to be complicated. And actually, let me start with some. I'm trying to find there was a particular one that I set aside for this and it disappeared. I think maybe I logged into the wrong account.
Dustin, can I just ask, are these personas that are available to any user in Magai, or they're ones you've created for your own personal use?
Some of them are, yeah. So in Magai, we have actually curated a list of 50 expertly crafted personas that anybody can choose and use inside of their chats inside of Magai. So yeah, some of these are completely available inside the app, but not all of them. Some of them are just completely custom to our needs for my particular business. Oh yeah, I think this might be one of my simpler ones. Yeah, here's this as simple could be. You are an academic researcher. You conduct research, analyze data, and publish findings in academic journals and conferences. So it can literally be this simple, right? You don't have to get super elaborate. The real idea here is you want to focus the AI on a specific type of task. And as long as you kind of narrow it in just even a little bit, you'll notice that the output that you get from this AI is going to be so much better. Now, obviously, the more articulate you get, the better the results are going to be, right? So the old adage is garbage in, garbage out. If you're not very detailed, expect to get not very detailed results. But if you take your time and craft these personas well, you're going to get something that's truly fantastic. And I'll give you one that I wrote recently. I wanted to do a marketing campaign for Magai, and I wanted to do some public relations work. And so having an extensive background in marketing and PR, I kind of knew what a PR story looks like. and in order to pitch it to different news agencies to hopefully they will pick it up. So I kind of understand already what needs to happen with writing a story for a PR pitch. So what I did is I took that knowledge and I transferred it into this persona. And so I started this one by saying, you, as an expert PR journalist, craft a compelling and irresistible story for PR campaigns that will be favored by media outlets. Begin by gathering the necessary information from the user, including input, topical direction, company history, and any specific details they wish to highlight. Use this information to construct a story that effectively communicates the desired message. Now, I could have stopped there, and that would have been sufficient. But because, again, I know more detail helps it to create a more sophisticated output, I actually put steps in here that it should follow. And it's really fantastic to see how the AI actually follows all of these steps once you start working with it. So I've outlined the steps here, just like I would outline it for an employee. This is exactly how I would write it if I were instructing an employee to follow a standard operating procedure. So I've got steps, collect information, and then some ways that it can collect information. Step 2, research and contextualize. Step 3, crafting the story. And then I've given it some output format. I've kind of preempted it as to how I want you to format this, right? So produce a professionally written PR article. The article should be structured with a headline, introductory paragraph, main content divided into sections, and a conclusion. Length should be between 300 and 600 words. And then I've got some notes here, just because I know how the AI can, how it needs to be guided in some situations. So I said, ensure the story maintains a positive tone and aligns with the brand image. Focus on creating newsworthy angles that provide value to media outlets, and consider different formats or multimedia elements that might enhance your story's appeal. So very detailed, right? And those of you who have any degree of expertise or knowledge in a given area, you know how important it is to have experience, right? And the AI doesn't have your experience, and it never will have your experience. So the more that you can sort of formulate your own experience into a procedural or well-outlined process for the AI to follow, the better it's going to actually match your, at least get close to your level of human understanding of the given task and come out with phenomenal output. Now, I will tell you, I started a new conversation. So in Magi, it looks a little bit different than ChatGPT. So if I were to start a new chat, and I can then, from the top left here, machine's working, my computer's working really slow right now because of the Zoom. All right, I'm gonna choose from the list. Oh man, it's really struggling. I should get rid of some of these other applications. Give me a second here. Sorry about that, folks. All right, so I can choose my PR writer from my list of personas. There it is, and I simply select it from the list. And once I've done that, it's now partnered with the AI model I've chosen. So in this case, I've got GPT-4 selected, but I actually prefer Claude 3.5 Sonnet. Now that's probably a whole lesson in and of itself, which models are best for which tasks, right? TLDR, if you're looking for human-like writing that you're going to send out in the public world, I highly recommend Claude 3.5 Sonnet. It just seems to be the best. So I've got the AI model partnered with this new system message, right? This system level instruction that I've created called PR Story Writer. And now I can simply tell it, here's the kind of story I want to write. Here are the bullet points that I want you to consider. And I will go ahead and even show you exactly the conversation I had with it. My machine is acting very, very slow.
While you're looking that up, Dustin, we've got a couple of people asking about copyright. Who owns the content that we create with Magai? Does Magai own it? Do we own it?
With Magai, yeah, that's a good question. Magai PR campaign, there we go. So our policy is everything belongs to you. We own no rights to it. The only rights we reserve that we legally have to in order to store your information so that you can find it and access it. Our team doesn't access it without your permission. It's completely private by default, but you own it. You can use it for any purposes you deem necessary. That's commercial license or private license. You are welcome to use it however you wish. So yeah, completely up to you. Finally got it to load here. So here's all oh, actually this is the wrong one. Hang on.
It's
This
demo
is where
mode.
I was having it analyze.
And by the way, someone was asking about DeepSeek. I think it was only a day or two after DeepSeek was announced to the public. That
DeepSeek, yes, we do have DeepSeek available in Magai. However, I'm a big privacy advocate, and everything, again, in Magai is private by default. We're very, very adamant about our users' privacy. DeepSeek is controversial in that it was created in China, and there are some controversies over whether or not the Chinese government has oversight and whether or not they're going to respect people's privacy. So we are actually using the open source version of DeepSeek, which means we have downloaded the open source model from the company DeepSeek. They've allowed anybody to publicly download it for free. And we've installed it on US-based servers, on private servers, which we control and only we can access. And so the DeepSeek version that you see inside of Magai is 100% private and housed on our own servers. But okay, here he is. Here's our Claude 3.5 Sonnet and our Pure Story Writer. This is the exact process I followed to get this brilliant PR story. Here's all I gave it. I need you to write a compelling story about my journey as an entrepreneur, how I almost lost everything, struggled with mental health issues, and thought I had nothing left in the world to give. Then when ChatGPT hit the scene, I realized it was going to change the world and decided to make a better way for people to use it along with all the other best models in one easy to use app. Now it's worth noting here, again, I have some custom context layered into Magai, right? In my account, I've given it context about my business, about what Magai is, what it does, and it knows a little bit more about me behind the scenes because I've set that up in our custom context. So the story that it wrote, I won't read you the whole thing because it's about 600 words or so. But I'll tell you, as somebody with 15 years of marketing experience and copywriting and article writing experience, I had no notes for this output. It was, for all intents and purposes, perfect. Usually I might have some edits or two, just based on word choices and language, but the partnership of Claude 3.5 Sonnet and this PR story writer with a very basic prompt gave me exactly what I needed. I literally could have copied and pasted that and sent it off to, my PR manager, and it could have done well. Now I did have a few little things, just more or less informational details that I wanted to include. So, about how quickly we were revenue positive and some of our revenue growth numbers. And so, and maybe some of our, I wanted to mention that the University of Notre Dame was one of our big customers. And so I just gave it those few notes, just factual things to include in the story. And it absolutely did. And it did a brilliant job. And that's all I needed. That was it. I wrapped this up. I put it in a document, sent it over to our PR campaign manager. And then I kind of brainstormed a handful of title ideas for it. But that's all. And now what's funny is after doing that, I had the writer on there. It was a PR company that we hired. I had them write their own story based on the same parameters that I gave my PR story persona. They sent it back and it was fairly good, right? It was okay. He's a professional writer. And the thing that surprised me most was the AI version was much more emotionally in tune with the goal of the story. The version that the PR writer was very promotional, and I didn't want it to be promotional. I really wanted it to be about the story because just personally, I'm a big advocate of mental health. I think entrepreneurs and everybody needs to talk about mental health more. We all struggle. I am very annoyed at the Instagram age where all people share is the best highlights of their life and making their life look perfect when nobody's life is perfect. We all struggle. So that's what I wanted the story to be about. Not about look how great Magi is, but look how low this one person got. And if they can get through it, you can too. And here's what they managed to do once they got out of the storm. That's what the story was supposed to be about. The AI nailed it. This emotionless, just computer thing managed to capture that emotional story much better than a human writer. And maybe it's because the human writer, they're used to writing things that are a little more promotional. But I just thought it was very funny that the AI got the emotional angle of the story much better than the human writer.
And I just saw an article saying that if people are given one piece of text, two groups, one is told that this text was created by a human, the other is told it's created by an AI. Even if it was text created by a human, the people who think it's an AI, start saying it feels artificial. Whereas, like you said, your AI can produce
Yeah,
something better sometimes.
there's actually a strange phenomenon, just as a little rabbit trail here, and I'll take some questions after this, but there's a new psychological phenomenon happening that because AI is now being talked about so much, the inclination of people to think that something is AI created for no reason other than they just think everything is being AI created is much higher now. So I had just a situation just last week where someone was like, "Oh, that was definitely AI," and I go, "No, I wrote that 100%," and they go, "Well, no, it just seems like AI." Well, why does it seem that way? And they couldn't really put their finger on it, but they just assumed everything is AI now, even photographs. There's higher scrutiny of photographs also. But that's a different story. So last is sort of putting the icing on the cake here. Always understand what the AI knows and what it doesn't know. Always try to layer in that context of who you are and how the AI is there to serve you in a given task. Give it all the information it needs to know in order to accomplish that task. And then, if possible, if you're able to create a GPT or add a system prompt at some level or create a persona, make sure you do that and take the time to articulate, because you're going to get much, much, much better results than just querying the general generic AI assistant. And with that said, let's take some questions.
All right. There's a lot of questions about pricing. How about let's start right there.
Sure. Yeah. Magi starts at $19 a month, and you get standard usage there, which is quite a lot. Most people don't find themselves using up all of the monthly allocated usage. But yes, $19 a month, you can get started, and you have access to 30 plus AI tools. I think there's something like 20 large language models in there now. We have at least 9 different image generators, and I think 4 different video generators. So
Yes.
really, it's about 30 AI subscriptions in one for
Right.
$19 a month.
Yeah. And I have the second tier up, the $29. I have never got even close to using it all.
Yeah, so that's our professional tier. So professional is $29 a month. You still get access to everything, but you can invite up to 5 team members to also share your account. And you get double the amount of monthly allocated usage. And again, yeah, most people never hit the edge of that.
And no, there isn't a trial version because we all know people abuse the trial versions.
Yes, yeah. Unfortunately, we had to remove the free trial because people were massively abusing it, and I was having to spend tens of thousands of dollars a month to cover those bills for the freeloaders. When instead, what I could do is just, if I were to take that free trial away, I could give way more to our paying users without having to, like cover the cost of all the free users. So I thought that was a much better deal. I'd rather give our paying users more and not have a free trial than have, the paying members subsidize the abusive users.
And what I would suggest is if that's really expensive, it can be depending on where you are, get a group of 5 people together and get the next version up, and each of you will pay much less.
Yeah. And the thing about our team plans, like the professional plans, you're everything is still private by default. So there's going to be one account owner, and then you can invite everybody to your team. But whenever a team member creates something, whether it's a chat or an image or a video or a persona, it still remains private to them. Only they can see it until they decide they want to share it with the team members, and then they can easily share and collaborate within the app if they choose. Just like Google Drive. That's kind of how we try to model the permissions and so forth in there.
Right. Cool.
I think the
What's the
important thing here is to recognize that actually for less than $20 that you pay for the next tier up in ChatGPT, you have access to all of these other models and the opportunity to try it out and see which one fits and works for your particular needs, which you wouldn't do otherwise. I mean, if you're going to end up paying $20 for each of the models that you find that you're going to use, you're going to be paying a lot more than you would pay for Magi. So it's actually a
I
really
like
good.
it. So for me, just literally going into the image creation and the video ones is just so much fun. I spend way more time there than I do on, the things I should be doing.
Yeah, it can be pretty fun. I love what I do because I get to play all day with all these AI things, and it does get a bit tedious at times because I feel the need to really test everything out to make sure that I can inform and educate users. This is how I know that, if you want something that's human-like, the most human-like AI writer is Claude 3.5 Sonnet. But if you want something that is super creative and you need to brainstorm, it's probably best to go with GPT-4. So like I have to play all day with all the different models to find out what they're good at so I can educate people on how they're good. But really the best thing that you can do, and I think this is true of even the image models and the video models, every AI model specializes and is really good at certain things where it's not so good at other things. And the ability to explore that in the same space really helps
Yes.
you find what's best works for you. And so, it's easier to explain with the image models. So like and we'll talk about this the next time I'm here, but with the image models, it's very clear. If you want DALL-E to produce something that is hyper photorealistic, DALL-E from OpenAI, good luck. It's not good at it. It does not do a good job. But you go to a model like Flux. Flux is extremely good at photorealism. The same is true with the LLMs. Like I said, Claude, human-like language, it's better at accuracy, but GPT, far more creative. So if you have a different task and different needs, you can swap out those models and find which one fits that task the best. And you don't have to have 15 different accounts and logins to do that. You can do them all from the same interface.
Just a question. We've got a few questions on the chat, which we'll come to in a second. You were showing us the personas. Can you flip between different personas in the same chat? So, for example, you wanted one
Yes.
persona to do something, and then you wanted to move on and use what that persona came up with by someone else.
Absolutely. Yeah. So in Magi, just like I showed you, you can select a persona at any time throughout the conversation. You can switch to a different persona, and then that persona will take right over where the other one left off. Likewise, you can change out the model at any time. So many times when I'm writing an article, blog post, for example, I'll start with GPT-4 because it is the most creative. It has the most sort of creative ideas of all the AI models. So I'll start with GPT-4 and my content writer persona. And then I'll flush out the ideas. And once we've got the outline worked out, I'll switch over to Claude when we start actually writing the article. And I'll switch over to a persona that is, I've actually made a persona based on my writing style. And so I fed it a bunch of content that I wrote myself. And so it understands how I write and the type of examples I use. So it's much easier for me to edit from there, if it already is writing in my style. So yeah, you can flip personas at any time, flip models at any time, and it'll all work seamlessly.
You've got the best of all worlds there, really, haven't you? You've got, you've got a team of people, potentially, team of experts that can literally follow the thread that you're you're following. That's brilliant. And Marina has asked that, is there any training that comes with it?
Yeah, so we have a help center right inside the app. In the bottom right-hand corner, there's a little help and support widget where you can open up, send us messages. You can search through our help articles. But on top of that, we partnered with something called the AI Academy. The AI Academy is a hub of AI training resources. It was created by a guy named Steve Dotto, a good friend of mine. And he'd been, teaching people AI for quite a while and decided to partner with Magai because he figured, my expertise and I love teaching would be a great addition to the AI Academy. So every week we do a live training on Wednesdays, 10 a.m. Pacific time. We're training on a new topic of AI all the time. And it's not always Magai focused. It's usually just like this. I want principles that can be used with any AI because ultimately we're all evolving in this new era together. And I think I think that's the best step forward. Teach people how to use any AI app thing. Now, it just so happens that a lot of the examples that we use are with Magai because that's what I have. So yeah, we have weekly training, and then that hub, the AI Academy, probably has, I don't know, I would say close to 100 different courses and lessons already. And again, we're adding more and more every single week.
There's a bunch
We
of
also
questions.
have a private Facebook group. That's worth noting also. Our private Facebook group is only for Magai users, and we do share lots of, quick tips, tutorials, and, updates in there as well. So it's great for users to learn from other users as well, so they can kind of share their newest tips and techniques.
Right. So can you develop external chat agents, AI assistants using tokens or AI APIs? And if so, how many can you create?
Magai is built to be an internal use tool. So we don't have any tools that would allow you to sort of embed a chatbot in other places. That's just not the goal we've set out to achieve. Number one, it's a fairly technical thing to do. I've built Magai for the non-technical person to be able to access all the AI in as easy a way as possible. It's for the person who's just got work to do, right? They just want to get work done. And so that's really the goal of Magai, and that's why we haven't built any, mechanisms or tools that would allow you to sort of externally utilize Magai on, say, a website or a support center. It's just not what we're after at this time.
You can't pull in other systems from the outside yourself, right? It's only what you, Dustin, will embed in there as new models for us.
Yeah. So yeah, right now it's just I kind of see myself as the curator. There are literally hundreds of different AI models out there, and if not in the thousands already. And there's a principle called the paradox of choice. It's a psychological study that was done many, many years ago, and essentially it proved the fact that when we are presented with many, many options, oftentimes that plethora of options overloads our ability to actually choose, and we don't choose. And so I see myself as I've taken responsibility to say I'm going to give users the minimum number of AI models that they need to get the widest range of capabilities. So I could literally in like 3 clicks, I could add 100 more AI models into Magai, but I've chosen not to because you don't need 15 models that do the exact same thing. You need maybe just enough range where you have the highest capability for several different prices, right? Because each model has a different cost associated with it. And then maybe you have some models that are even lower in cost that aren't as sophisticated, but they don't need to be for a given task. And so my goal is really to explore the range of options out there and give users exactly what they need at every different possible level without redundancy. I'm not a fan of redundancy. So yeah, hopefully that answers the question.
Right. What about using the tool to develop working models, 3D, CAD, physical representations of ideas, as we're discussing in the chat with the agent?
Yeah, convert 2D, 3D. That's a process. I haven't looked into that type of thing yet. I know there are AI models out there that can do 2D to 3D, but I haven't explored it as of yet.
Are there limits on the usage for the image generators for Magi subscribers?
Yeah, so we break everything down into words, mostly because most people don't understand what a token is, and I think most AI developers don't know what a token is, but that happens to be the language that is used for the LLMs. And then in terms of AI and video or AI video and images, they have a whole different system of what metrics they use in terms of like what it costs and what is measured. So what I've done is I've tried to figure out how do we normalize all of this so that normal people can understand. So it all breaks down to words. When you ask Chat GPT-4 something inside of Magi, whatever you get out, the amount of words that you get out of it is what's taken from your monthly allocated usage. And so, for example, on the $19 a month plan, you get 100,000 words a month from GPT-4. And whatever you get out of GPT-4, that amount of words is subtracted from your monthly allocation. In terms of images, we've normalized all the images to equal every image generation is about 400 words. So, right, we've just kind of broken it down to all being equal to words, according to the actual cost behind the scenes. And so we've kind of,
On the
balanced everything out. And so essentially, 100,000 words divided by 400 words per image, you can then calculate how many images you could potentially get out of Magi in a given month.
So what's that? 250? No, 2,500.
Oh, you're asking me to do math.
Sorry. It's either 2,500 or
250.
25.
Yeah, so about 250 images you could get out of Magi on a given month if you're at the lowest possible point.
How is data stored? How is it securely saved? And how is bias and fairness of these models being evaluated?
So we don't control the models. We don't make our own models. We are simply using the model vendors directly from the platforms themselves. So the ChatGPT you would use in ChatGPT's app is the same ChatGPT you get inside of Magi, which means we have no control over biases. We don't influence those biases. We give you complete and utter control over the outputs through the use of context and personas. So I can't speak to any of the biases. I can speak to our security. It is the highest level of security and protocols. Our tech stack is extremely secure, using some very sophisticated techniques. But suffice to say, we have a very good team of people protecting our users' data, and I guess that's as much as I'll say about that without giving too much away.
Someone asked a question that I actually skipped over, which was, is prompt engineering, the term, even going to be relevant, or is it really going to be, more
So
the formulation?
that's a great question. I actually said this probably very early in that I don't think prompt engineering is going to be a term that lasts very long, because
Right.
the nature of these models, if you really think about what the nature of these models is, or the intent of them is, from day one, they were engineered to understand natural human language. And that means making a lot of assumptions about intent, phrase intent and language intent. And you have to sort of learn to make the right assumptions about the right phraseology, and it's only going to get better. And so the reason prompt engineering was needed at the early beginning was because the AIs weren't sophisticated enough to guess the right amount of, or to make the right amount of assumptions, or to go deeply enough into those assumptions, or have the wherewithal to ask questions to verify or prove wrong the assumptions that they would have made. It's
One of those things.
getting to the end of my day, I think, or maybe I just need some more coffee. But yeah, I don't think it's gonna. I mean, there is use for it. So it's specifically for developers who are developing custom apps or custom applications for these AI models. There's definitely an art and a craft to engineering personas or system
Right.
prompts that are super effective. And I think you'll see a lot of prompt engineering in that vein. But I don't
Got it.
think the average person is going to need to learn prompt engineering. Like I've demonstrated here today. I mean, it really comes down to the persona and the custom context that you give it to really get the best output. Now, there are some techniques out there where they'll teach you how to do these mega prompts and, really load up that prompt to get the most out of it. But I've I've done thousands of tests at this point, and I can tell you that, really just be intentional and just articulate as best you can the goals that you have for a given query, and you'll be just fine. You don't have to be an engineer of any type. These AI have gotten to the point where they can really do a lot of that engineering work for you behind the scenes and make the necessary assumptions to get you what you want. And if for whatever reason they don't nail it on the first output, you can massage it. You can go back and forth and just give it feedback like you would a normal person. And the beauty of that is it actually gets smarter and smarter the more feedback you get. This is why I don't teach, you should just do one mega prompt and let it run with that mega prompt. I really, it's proven. It's not that I believe it and haven't seen it. I've seen time and time again that as you iteratively go back and forth with the AI, the outcome becomes better and better and better. And so you really should make a wholehearted attempt to communicate back and forth several times and dig deep into that conversation to really get the ultimate output. I would put my reputation as an expert on the line and say what one person would do in one giant well-engineered mega prompt, and the amount of time it would take them to engineer that, I could get a better result in less time just by going back and forth a few times with the AI.
So basically, like you said, treat it like a friend. Just talk to it like a human.
Talk to it like a human. It's not a human, but it's trained to understand human dialogue.
Right. And I think this could be the last question. We're running just slightly over time. It's a suggestion and a request. Where can we learn which which AI is better for what application? Would be nice if the strengths were summarized in the model selection.
Yeah, so it's hard to keep up with because they're always changing. But I have written an article. If you go to the Magi blog, in fact, I can find it real quickly for you. I have one about LLMs. And even though it's, I think 6 or 8 months old now at this point, it still holds pretty true. The principles that, or the conclusions that I make in the article. Let me share this
Is
with
that the Gen
everyone.
AI versus LLM?
So here's the article. I just put it in the chat there. Choosing the right LLM. So it compares the top LLM models and kind of gives you a breakdown of their strengths and weaknesses. And that it still holds true today. It's still, I follow those same things, and every now and then I'll revisit it and go, is this still true? Most cases it is, because the interesting that you find when you start to explore these different companies and sort of the guiding principles behind them, it kind of makes sense. And so OpenAI is very creative. They're very out of the box. They've really tuned up the ability for their GPT models to wow people and to mystify them. There's this sort of just excitement around them because they're so creative. And their biggest competitor, in my opinion, is Anthropic. And Anthropic was actually a company started by ex-OpenAI engineers because they thought OpenAI was not being cautious enough or safe enough. And they wanted to create a safer, more reliable model. And so you'll find that Claude, Anthropic's model, is a little less creative, but it tries to be a little more accurate and it tries to be a little more safe in terms of like not making stuff up. And so you'll find that the different personalities are really driven by the company's core driving principles. And that's why a lot of times you'll find that what their strengths and weaknesses tend to stay the same, even with Google. So Google, their models tend to be very well structured. They're really good with coming out with like highly well formatted things. And if you think about that, Google's whole thing from day one was like, we want to organize and structure the internet, right? And they've consumed billions and trillions of web pages that are structured. And so it makes sense that they would be really good at structure. Historically, the company has not been good at, language that people understand. For lack of a better term, because they're so smart. They're some of the smartest engineers in the world. You try to read their help documentations, like I have no idea what I just read, and that makes sense when you look at their AI models, because their AI models aren't quite as good at human-like language. It's very, very fluffy at times and very technical at times. And so you find that it kind of matches the company that produced it to an extent.
Right, that does make sense. Wow, this has been full on. Thank you so much,
Yeah.
Dustin. And what question should I have asked if I was smart enough to ask it? Since you're here, I mean, what am I missing that I didn't ask you?
Oh man, I mean, really, I always encourage people to ask real life use examples. Really, the best way I've always learned and I've always tried to teach is from like real world examples. That's why I use my PR story, and most of my examples are very marketing related because that's what I was a marketing consultant for 15 years. So, I always say, ask me questions related to your day to day. What are some tasks that you do every single day that you maybe tried AI for, maybe it worked, maybe it didn't, or maybe you are curious if AI can do. Those are the types of questions you should be asking. Pragmatic questions. How does this affect my daily work and use? And I, the reason for that is again because people learn that way, but also there's a lot of shiny objects out there in the AI world. There are several new things that OpenAI came out with this past month or two that I think are really dumb. In that they don't really help people in their day-to-day workflow. I think one of the things they came out with was operator, and the concept of it where AI can use a web browser for you. The, the concept is interesting, right? It's exciting, but it's not actually useful. It's not actually practical because you have to sit there and watch the AI use the browser for you. And it's oftentimes slower and less accurate than you and needs far more oversight. So, right, it's not actually useful. Another one was they call them reminders, I guess is what I can't remember. But basically, you can have ChatGPT remind you of things and in the form of a
My
push
phone does a good
notification.
job of that.
I don't know about you, but I do not need more push notifications in my life. That's the last thing I need. So not interesting, but not super useful. I mean, we probably have tools that we can use to get that stuff done. But so
Ooh,
always ask
I'm planning,
practical questions.
someone asked, I'm planning to write a book. What's best for me?
Writing a book. So I would ask what type of book. The reason for that, there are some AI models, like, for example, if you're writing a fantasy novel with maybe some battle scenes. I'm a big Lord of the Rings fan. I love those sort of action fantasy things. So if there's any sort of violence or battle scenes or stuff like that, some AI models will refuse to work with you, particularly OpenAI, Anthropic, because of their safety protocols. They are trained to not interact with that type of content. Or maybe if you're into romance novels and things that might have adult oriented themes. Those models will not be helpful because they're trained to not do that kind of thing. Which is why in Magi we have what we categorize as unmoderated models. And unmoderated models don't have the guidelines, the strict adherence guidelines, acceptable use policies that the moderated ones have. And so you might find yourself having to use one of the unmoderated ones as opposed to a moderated. But going back, if you're writing a book that is not that won't have any sort of battle scenes or violence or maybe sexual themes, then I would say Claude 3.5 Sonnet is the best because again, it seems to be the best at human-like language, having emotional intelligence far greater than that of its counterparts.
Can you have AI create better tables? I'm not quite sure I understand that question. Cookie, if you want to elaborate on that.
Tables as in like spreadsheets or I guess like
That's what it sounded
that
like
sort
to
of
me.
thing.
Possibly. Harry's just
Harry
said
also.
actually what he was looking at writing was in financial markets trading.
Oh, a nonfiction book. Okay.
Oh yeah, nonfiction that might work quite well. I would definitely suggest Claude 3.5 Sonnet.
Got it. Got it. And Cookie says yes, Excel kind of tables.
I know Ray says agents, and I want to clarify that. Agents is a term that some people are using for AI that can perform tasks outside of just generating text, and maybe an AI that can accomplish multiple different tasks at once. So the idea of an AI agent is an AI that can do things other than just give you text. And I will tell you that we're working on releasing this right now for Magi, the ability to give AI power beyond just being inside of the Magi container. So for example, if you wanted to send an email for you, you'll be able to tell the AI, send this email to a person, and it'll be able to, as long as you've connected to the necessary app, connect to that app and take that action for you, or take multiple step actions. And we're working on releasing that now. So that's kind of the definition of a AI agent, an AI that can not just give you an output message, but perform an outside action or a series of actions
I fully
autonomously.
misunderstood when you said it's intended for internal use. Got it. Okay. This is great.
Yeah, internal
You
use meaning we're not building a something that you can embed on a web page like a chatbot
Okay.
somewhere else. You know, it's more for you go to the Magi app to accomplish things.
So you would integrate that with something like Zapier or Make or something like that. Is that right?
Absolutely. Yep, that's what we're working on. And I think this year is going to be heavily the year of agents. And
Yes.
because finally AI is capable of being trusted with multiple steps. In the early days, you could sort of duct tape together agentic workflows, but they
Yeah.
were very unreliable and really need a lot of human oversight. But with the onset of the recent models, O1 in particular from OpenAI and some of the more sophisticated ones from Anthropic and Google, they are now very reliable in multi-step sequences. And so we're building that now into Magi, and you'll see a lot of other apps doing that too.
So the idea of chaining GPTs then is really what this workflow kind of thing is, isn't it?
Yeah, that's one way to think about it. So if you had, you know, maybe a prompt that you wanted to execute, and then a prompt to execute after that, and maybe an action to, you know, go trigger a Zapier workflow after that, and then pass it off to this other persona and a different AI model and execute this prompt. And so eventually you'll be able to execute very sophisticated workflows with just one prompt.
Fantastic.
All of this will be part of our paid subscriptions, right? We don't have a separate subscription for that.
Correct. Yeah, we're building right into the regular Magi flow.
Nice.
Fantastic. That's exciting. What kind of timeline are you looking at?
Well, this week we'll be releasing version 1 of what we
Sorry?
call actions. So you'll be able to
Not sure what happened there, Karen. I just heard.
Sorry, Maya.
Can you hear me
Go
now?
ahead, Dustin.
Oh,
so you
yeah.
think
So
this
this week
week
we're releasing the first version of actions, and so ChatGPT actually has a version of this too, where you can add actions to GPTs. So we're building that functionality in now. It should drop this week or so, and you'll be able to choose from one of our pre-made actions or build your own. And then after that, we'll be working on the functionality that will allow you to build workflows that the AI can then take simultaneous or sequential actions.
Fantastic.
Nice.
The questions keep coming in, don't they?
I like this question. I'm a graphic designer. Would learning AI help me generate more clients?
Oh, absolutely. So I started my career as a graphic designer. Yeah, I mean, AI, one of the things that I think a lot of designers and really anybody who has a particular craft has a hard time with is finding clients, right? And because finding clients requires sales and marketing skills that you've been
Yes.
honing your design craft. Where you don't have time to go learn marketing and sales, right? That's one of the things that AI is really good at, is helping you figure out those things that you yourself are not very good at. And marketing just happens to be one of those things.
And is there an AI? Is there a phone app?
For Magi,
Yes.
I assume for Magi. Currently, no, we don't have an app, but all of our app is web-based, and so as long as you have a web browser on your phone, it's completely mobile responsive, and it works beautifully on the mobile web version. So we're working on getting the mobile app on the radar. The challenge with being in the AI industry is it moves so fast. and we're always adding new things, and our roadmap is so aggressive, especially with the onset of agents. We're really excited about this, and so we have to really prioritize. Building a dedicated mobile app is basically a full-time job in and of itself, and so it's on there, it's on the list. Eventually we will have one, but it's a little bit further down the roadmap in terms of priorities.
Wow. Okay.
And
Dustin,
Marina's asked here, sorry, last question. It's just, Marina's asked, will the agents be included in the existing subscriptions?
Absolutely. Yeah, I do not believe in locking people out of new features. I'm very adamant about that. Our users who started with us from day one, who still maintain their subscription, will always have the newest and the latest features and models and all of that stuff.
Fantastic. All good stuff. Thank you. I think
My pleasure.
we've gone way over time. And it's your birthday.
Yeah, no problem. This is so I'm an extrovert. This actually is life-giving to me, to be able to teach and to hang out with folks and have good conversations. This is exactly how I want to spend my birthday. So thank you all for inviting me. You can reach me online or through the Magai website. I try to be very accessible. I'm at Dustin W. Stout on all the social things, so feel free to reach out. If you have any questions, our team is here to answer them for you. And yeah.
Excellent. And someone's written on here, we don't want this to end. It's been such a good evening. Thank you so much. And actually, for those of you who are on, Dustin's going to join us next week, next Monday, where we'll be talking more about the visual side of AI. So all the images and videos, and having a look at Magai from that perspective as well. So do join us then. We'd love to see you.
Thank you again, Dustin. Thank you everyone for joining us.
Yeah, really appreciate it. Lots of thank yous and happy birthday. So go and have a brilliant day. Enjoy the rest of your day.
I will. Thank you, guys.
Thanks a lot. We'll see you next week. Take care.